Hello, this is the ScaffoldHERs podcast, the podcast where a female scaffolder interviews other female scaffolders for research purposes to see what we can learn from real females working hands-on in the scaffolding industry from a variety of backgrounds and experience to see what we can maybe change or enhance to create a better future in scaffolding for all future generations. I'm your host, Vicky Welch, 17 years in the industry, the first female to get a gold card, the first British female scaffolder to work offshore, and now the first female to create a podcast with female scaffolders. This podcast wouldn't be possible without my two amazing sponsors, Morix, a specialist business consultancy founded by Des Moore. With more than 50 years of hands-on experience in scaffolding and construction, Des helps construction businesses strengthen the leadership, improve operations, drive sustainable growth, and make better strategic decisions. Having worked his way from labourer to CEO of a £100 million construction business, Des brings practical, straight-talking advice through consultancy, mentoring, non-executive director support and leadership training, helping the next generation of construction leaders build stronger, more successful businesses. He couldn't be a better fit for this podcast. We're also proudly sponsored by SIMIAN, which is one of the UK's leading construction and scaffolding safety specialists. They were established in 2005. They provide expert training and consultancy to business across the industry, always guided by their values of safe, sound and secure. I've completed my advanced training with SIMIAN myself and had fantastic experience, and so have many of the other women in the industry that I've spoken to so far. If you're looking for high quality professional training, SIMIAN is a name that you can definitely trust. This podcast is also working closely with WISA, which is the Women in Scaffolding Association, in which I'm now an ambassador and mentor for. Please do check them out when you get a chance. And disclaimer here that everything expressed in this podcast is just personal experiences, opinions that everyone is entitled to. There is no offence intended. And in order to keep it natural and authentic, there's probably going to be a lot of swearing and banter, which I think some people will look forward to the most. And of course, we appreciate any feedback. All opinions are welcome. Everyone is entitled to an opinion. So please just drop a comment. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the podcast. Let us know. So I am conducting the first podcast solo about myself. Why not? Because I'm going to be going around interviewing all these other lasses, which I can't bloody wait for. But I want to try and hit some key points in each of them, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to kind of get the flow going with mine, if that makes sense. So yes, I'm Vicky Welch. I'm 36 years old. I've been in the scaffolding industry now for 17 years. I started as an apprentice when I was 19. So yeah, a long time ago. I'm gonna give you a little rundown on my life up until that point, as quick as I can really, because obviously I am going to be chatting with all these other lasses. The conversations are going to flow and other bits about me might come out along the way. And I'm just going to basically nail down a few things that are relevant to who I am today, if that makes sense. So a little bit about my upbringing. I'm from a town in just outside of North Shields, which is basically part of Newcastle, closest city, called Meadowell. And anyone who knows Meadowell knows that it is a pretty rough area. It used to be called the Ridges. There's a lot of information on about the riots that were in 1991. It's well known for being a rough, rundown sort of area of poverty, if you like. To be fair, it's not that bad anymore. I don't think many of these places are, but they still have the sort of little rough areas, if you know what I mean. But yeah, Meadowell was infamous for quite a while. I haven't actually lived there for years now, but that is where I was born and bred. And I grew up for the first few years of my life just with me mum. My dad was never in the picture, so my mum was a solo parent up until I was about 5. And then I went into my nana's care. So I was brought up from 5 to a teenager till I was 13 with me nana, because my mum unfortunately had mental health problems and she suffered drug addiction and alcoholism. So yeah, she kind of started out with the alcohol, as most people do, went on to amphetamines, the likes of that, psychedelics, and she moved on up to heroin by the time I was 10. So mental health has been a big part of my life. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm really passionate about bringing awareness to mental health and trying to help people with ill mental health. And yeah, my mum at a very young age, I think I was 6, the first time she tried to commit suicide. So, you know, she's suffered depression, drug addiction her whole life. She's clean and sober now. You know, I've still got my mum, she's alive, but those first few years of my life were, you know, I experienced a lot of childhood trauma kind of through my mother, and through experiences of, you know, being given up by my mum and having to go and live with my nana and not seeing my mum for long periods of time. I grew up in a household with my nana and my auntie. No dad around, no granda around. It was very much like an all-female household, which might surprise some people considering I've ended up in like a male-dominated industry, but I didn't really have any male figures in my life growing up, apart from my granda, who was on my dad's side. So I always had contact with my nana and granda, and he was kind of the only man in my life, if you like. But didn't really see much of him, you know. They lived in a different town, and it was mainly only birthdays and Christmases and things like that when I seen them. So yeah, I grew up in Meadowell until I was 13, and then when I was 13, I got diagnosed with a health condition called scoliosis, and that is it's curvature of the spine. So it can happen to anyone really. You can be born with it, you can develop it later in life, but the main one is developed during adolescence. So when your body's going through a growth spurt, basically it's just like a hormone goes off and goes wrong and your spine grows curved. So yeah, I was hit quite hard with that when I was 13. I used to love to dance and to sing and perform. That was my thing. I always wanted to be an actress and a dancer and write my own films. I've always been very creative, very imaginative when I was growing up. But this was a huge ailment that I had to have surgery for. So if I didn't have the surgery, there was a good chance that I would be quite disabled. There was even a chance of me spine crushing into my lungs, crushing into my heart. So yeah, I went for the surgery, and that meant that I had 2 titanium rods inserted either side of my spine and lots of nuts and bolts. I think there's around 15 altogether, 15 or 17. And I had a spinal fusion at the same time to stop it from regrowing, if you like. That's to help strengthen the spine up. So there's 6 discs actually fused together in the middle of my back as well. So as you can imagine, I was pretty immobile for just a few weeks, to be honest, a lot less than I should have been, because when I went through this sort of this process, the healing process, I hit this stage where something inside me rebelled. I really wanted to see more of my friends. I was at that age where your friendship zone was like your number one priority, and I was meant to be bedridden for weeks. And you know, we didn't have mobiles back then. We didn't have like the type of technology that we've got now. So I went off to find me friends when I should have been lying in bed, really. And I ended up starting to drink and starting to smoke. And then within a couple of years, I was taking drugs, just like, you know, ecstasy, speed, and smoking cannabis and stuff like that. You know, you'll notice I'm really, really trying here to kind of speak clear English and hold back a little bit of the like the Raji side of us, because there is a huge Raji inside of me. And you know, when I'm round with the lads and I'm on site or I'm on the job, I sound different. So there's going to be lots of lads sitting listening to me now going, who does she think she is? Who's she trying to be? I'm trying to cater for everyone who's listening to this podcast, because there is going to be a lot of, hopefully, like industry leaders, and, you know, there's going to be like a huge professional side as well as a lot of scaffs as well. So I'm going to probably dot in between the two. When I'm talking with the lasses and it's flowing, I'm probably going to sound a lot more Geordie and, you know, a lot more down to earth then. You know, not that I'm not down to earth at this point, but I'm just trying to enunciate a little bit better. So the drugs that I was referring to was obviously weed, ease, stuff like that. But yeah, ended up on the party scene as a teenager and moved back with my mum when I was 14 as well, and that was another turning point in my life. We were homeless basically. My mum was living in a hostel when I went back with her. It was a pretty rundown hostel full of junkies, and yeah, we shouldn't have really been in there. And there's 2 females because it was a men's hostel. And then we got moved into like a women's refuge, and then we moved around from being Airbnbs. I was going to say they didn't have them back then. Bed and breakfasts in Whitley Bay, temporary housing, and this went on until I literally just left school. So I kind of went downhill. I was a nerd at school, particularly primary school, and then the first 2 years of high school. I was very intelligent, believe it or not. There's going to be a lot of lads sitting there now going, shut up. I must also warn you, I do swear a lot as well. I'm trying to hold back a little bit, but it is going to come out. I'm a scaff after all, aren't I? And it's going to be majority scaffs listening to this, I suppose. I was pretty intelligent until I started drinking, taking drugs, things like that. And then all this stuff that was going on with the homelessness, I was exposed to a lot of my mum's drug abuse and other things that, I'm not really going to go into on this podcast. And yeah, I scraped GCSEs. I got them. I got me B's and C's. And then I went on to A-levels, but at one point I was an A-star student, and it just went down basically to B's and C's. So I make myself sound like I'm hard done by there, but yeah, that's the case. I went on to A-levels. I still had this dream of writing films, writing movies and stuff. I couldn't do any dancing or anything anymore, and I think that really hit us hard, and probably one of the reasons why I rebelled so much as well. I remember having to sort of sit and watch everyone dance, and I couldn't do it, and it was heartbreaking. I suppose it's like when a footballer, if there's a teenage boy who's into football, breaks his leg and then can't do it, and you've got to sit and watch the team. It was very similar to that. So yeah, I couldn't do any of that anymore. But I did carry it on into A-levels. I still kind of held on a little bit. But I didn't complete my A-levels. It got to that point where I kept falling out with my mum, and she kept kicking me out, and I needed money. So I was just putting work before college, and partying, of course, partying. And every time I was getting jobs, because I quit college, and then I was just bouncing from job to job. Like I literally worked in Morrison's cake shop. I worked in Orange call centre. I done door-to-door sales. I worked in pubs, shops, and I could not hold down a job because I was just on the session as much as I could. I was on the bones of my arse, I wasn't earning a lot of money. And the problem is when you come from a place that is very run down, in a place of poverty, if you like, the one thing that people need, like what people need, human connection, don't they? You need company. Like you would rather sit and drink with people than sit on your own, like with a house full of food. So a lot of the time, a lot of people do choose when they get money to spend it on alcohol, drugs, because that kind of brings people together. So yeah, that's kind of what I was doing, just spending my money on drink. And that was having a massive effect. So yeah, I kept bouncing from job to job, couldn't hold one down. And then eventually one day I went into this place which was like a pathway into work. If you'd been on job seekers for so long, you went through working links. That's what it was called. I'm not sure if it still exists. There was an interview. There was like an open interview, so anyone could come in. I think there must have been about 15 people there, and there was these different employers were pitching their jobs to make them sound appealing, to get people to apply. And I jumped in with a friend. I wasn't even meant to be there that day. I was just meeting my friend for a drink. She was like, why don't you come along? So I went, and then this guy was there, and he was talking about scaffolding, and there was an administrator's job going, and they were going on and on about it, and I can't remember now, this is 17 years ago, but they were going on about scaffolding. I thought it sounded good, so I just kind of put my hand up and went, yeah, can lasses do scaffolding as well? And everyone was like laughing, sort of these smarmy laughs. And then the guy was like, well, we don't have any women, and I don't see why not, type of thing. He's like, you're kind of onto something there. And I said, well, I'd rather do that than sit on my arse all day, like on a screen. So, people were just laughing again. And then, to be fair, I didn't really know what scaffolding entailed. I'd just seen it on the street. I didn't know how it went up and out. So I got a phone call. Well, my friend got a phone call later on to say, listen, was your friend being serious? Because we've kind of got we want to offer her some work. We want to give her a trial. So they offered us a trial at the Stadium of Light. And they were building the stage for the Oasis concert. So this was with a company called Easy Scaffolding. And Easy Scaffolding, they were one of the only companies in the country at the time that were using system scaffolding, and they were using Alyastar. So Alyastar, anyone who's used it, it's the lightest one out there. It's so light and it goes together so well. So quick, sorry. And that's what it was. But I didn't know that. And I was just up for going. I just sort of turned up. But they also asked if my friend wanted to come and actually have like a trial as well. And there turned out to be three of us, three women, three lasses, me, Shauna and Carly. And we had the time of our life. We just had a laugh start to finish. We had to turn up. We got told we got paid £80 a day, which was like 3 times what I was getting paid on the dole at the time. So we got the metro, went up the Stadium of Light, we had an absolute time of our life, free food for dinner and that, man. We honestly thought we had made it. And Spike, this guy who worked there at the time, God bless him, what an absolutely beautiful man, he showed us, he showed us how to base out a lift, click it together, put the standards on the jacks, click them together, hit them with a hammer, and then do the same on the next lift. But the thing with system, you're not plumbing anything in, you're just leveling the lift. And I remember him saying, "Oh, this is called a blob." The level he went, we call this the blob. And at the time, a blob was another word for a condom. So we were in fits of laughter. Do you know what I mean? And then he also says, like, these are the trannies. Well, as you can imagine, teenage lasses were pissing ourselves. And I just thought he was taking the mick. I was like, "There's no way." But he was being deadly serious, and we just had such a laugh. We got shown around the stadium. We got free tickets for the Oasis concert, so it was class. But my friend did actually get the office job. The other lass, she decided to come in and give it another go with me, but I got offered a job basically, and they were like, "Carly, if you do want to come along, you can come along." So a couple of weeks later, we started, just me and Carly. And it had been agreed that we were going to get paid cash in hand today, But we went up and they took us to this job, and it was on Matfen Hall Church. It's absolutely huge. So there was a good 10 lifts in it, and it was right at the top of the steeple. And he was like, "Right, you're on a proper job now. You just need to go and climb to the top through ladders, obviously, all handrailed in. Go and have a little go up the top and see what you like with heights." So Carly started going up the ladders. She got to about the third lift and she just froze on the ladder, and she was like, "Look, I can't, I don't like this. I really don't like it." So she got back down. So I went up the top, and I just loved it. I loved being up that high. It was a bit of a buzz for me. And then I started having a little bit of a climb about, climbing down the outside and stuff. I shouldn't have been, I really shouldn't have been, but I was kind of showing off a little bit as well, I think. And the lads there were just such good crack. It was mad, it was all eyes on us. It was like, this mad attention, but in a good way. People were kind of like, "You're fucking mad, he's like, what you're doing," but like respect. Do you know what I mean? And it was like just instant respect for even trying it. There was probably a few backhanded comments and, a little bit of like, probably actually laughing at us and not with us at one point. But at the time, just didn't care. I was just loving the vibe of it. It was a buzz. Do you know what I mean? So we got back to the yard, and the guy who actually really ran the place, it wasn't Spike, it was someone else. There was 3 brothers ran the company. He come up to the pickup and he was like to Spike, he went, "You are making a huge mistake here. These lasses are just going to cause trouble." And then he turned to me and he was like, "Listen, if you want a job, you're going to have to do an apprenticeship. You're going to have to go down the proper route. You're only going to get 120 a week, not this like £80 a day. And you're going to have to go to college and stuff, but you get your qualification at the end of it." And do you know what it is? I did have a choice, but in my eyes, I was like, what am I going to do then? Say no to like this opportunity and go back on me £23 a week, because I was getting sanctioned for not going to the job centre, for not turning up. So I was only getting like 50% of what I was entitled to. It's like a punishment thing. I wonder if that still exists. And I was struggling in a little flat on my own, a little council flat. So I was just like, do you know what? 120 quid a week, it's like £500 a month. That's more money than I've ever had. So yeah. So I was like, sign me up. And yeah, Carly went back to our painting and decorating. She didn't stick it. And it was the start of a long journey. So yeah, obviously done a hell of a lot of labour in the first year and just dotting around the streets. We had a lot of council work in North Tyneside, over in Sunderland as well. A couple of new build sites I worked on. all using this system scaffold. Never once had to use tube and fitting unless it was a little handrail around the roof. But then, of course, I was going to college and I was working with tube and fitting at college. So it was a bit like, it was a bit hard. It was really hard to get my head around. And to be honest, I was doubtful. I was doubtful of myself. I was like, am I going to pass this course? Because I can't handle the 21s. I definitely can't handle them. And I just felt like an absolute fraud. Do you know what I mean? But I was doing everything else. It was just basically the 21s I couldn't handle. And I was actually quite excelling like in the classroom side of it, quite often getting the top marks on the tests and things like that. So it was just literally that was putting us off. But then I was just in my head like, look, I've just got to get through college and then I'll just go back to my system and it's fine. And yeah, that's what I did. That's what I did in the end. So yeah, I did struggle at college. I struggled with the atmosphere. I felt like the odd one out because I was using system. I felt a lot more like people were laughing at me there with the banter. It wasn't bullying or anything like that, but there was just a lot more, I don't know, just a lot more shit at college. And I used to dread going in. But I got there in the end, and yeah, I was super, super proud of myself when I got my part two. There was a bit of a plot twist as well when I started that apprenticeship. They told me that I needed me rope access. What the fuck for? I still don't know to this day. But they put us on my rope access course. They must have had funding for it. And I went over to South Shields Marine Centre. I was the first lass to ever go there and do it. And yeah, I passed with flying colours. But I tell you what, it was the hardest thing I have ever done. The hardest course I've ever done. I was in absolute agony every day. Like, hats off to the lads on the ropes. Like, and I remember actually passing it. I did think I was going to fail because every time I was coming down off the ropes, I was getting like pain in my arm here, which a lot of ropes people will know. Pain on my thighs, like my legs. Do you know when I started scaffolding, honestly, I was just a little dumpling. Like, I was not fit. I was a heavy smoker, heavy drinker, a little porker. I wasn't massive, but I definitely had never been in the gym. Never been for a run or anything like that. I wasn't fit. I wasn't strong. I had these bloody rods in my back. I wasn't supposed to be like heavy lifting in that. But because it was just that system scaffold, it wasn't really that heavy. Do you know what I mean? So I knew I was all right with it. But yeah, the rope course, honestly, when I passed it, I cried my eyes out. I'd never been so proud of myself. And I think like I'd done that probably, I was about 4 months into my apprenticeship, I think, when I'd done that. So I was proper fresh, brand new. And I think passing that, I think that the way that I felt actually being proud of myself for the first time since I was probably like a kid, it just shook something in me and it gave me that like, yeah, I want to feel like this again. This is how I want to be. This is me, like successful type of thing. Like, I can do anything I put my mind to. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I think that was a really good catalyst. And I was determined to get me part two after that. I was like, nah, I'm fucking getting that no matter how hard it is. It can't be as hard as that course. Physically anyway. So yeah, although I never ended up using it in the end and it just ran out, I think it done something, So yeah, thank you to the directors for randomly putting me on that course. Obviously just to make the company look good, but never mind. So yeah, I ended up being at Easy for like 5 years, and it wasn't easy. I didn't get on with the boss. He was nasty to me a hell of a lot. And listen, people might go, "Are you just being sensitive?" No, I've worked with hundreds, probably thousands of fucking blokes by now. There is literally, I can count on one hand the people that I will call a CUNT, and he was one of them. I mean, don't get us wrong, I've met him years later, and he's always been lovely to us since. It was just when we were at that company, and he admits it, and he's like, listen, I had to treat you worse. I had to treat you worse than the lads because they would have thought I was favouring you. In a little deluded sense, he did say once that if he hadn't have had his hand on my shoulder and been like that with us, I probably wouldn't have been as determined to be as successful as I was. And that's bullshit. Like, to be fair, like, I don't agree with that. I was, a lot of times didn't want to go to work because I didn't want to see him. I was in fear a lot of the time. And yeah, back in those early days, it was different. It was very much, I was just a young teenage lass, like, never really, I mean, even when I was a teenage, like, before scaffolding, when I was 13 and I started drinking on the streets and stuff like that and in gangs, I was always one that used to stay back with the lads. I was always the last lass standing, always. and I would just walk the streets throughout the night, you know, just hang around with the lads. So I think I have always been that way, like that little bit tomboyish, even though, you know, I was quite feminine up to sort of 13, into me dancing and singing and stuff. As soon as I hit a teenager, yeah, I used to like I say, I'd be the last one sat. I would outdrink the lasses, and I got on with lads really well. And there's been numerous times I've sat on sessions with people and they've been like, yeah, you're the soundest lass I've ever met. Do you know what I mean? Because like I'm not in there trying to ride them all. I'm just literally getting on with everyone. And yeah, so I think I've you know, to when I look back like at things, signs of fitting in as a scaffolder, they were definitely there. Another thing, like, just because I do want to sort of pinpoint with, especially with the other lasses, if there was any signs of the getting into scaffolding. Like when I went through this phase when I think I was about 11, kind of maybe just started high school or just about to start high school. But I used to go off down this place, Linear Park, just on my own, and I just used to love going climbing. I used to go and just like find a wall and just hang and drop off it. Do you know what I mean? I would challenge myself and be like, right, how high can I jump from and stuff like that? How high can I drop from? And I used to love climbing and trying to climb up lampposts and shit like that. So I think that's definitely the little scaffolders, isn't it? But I tell you what, Tomb Raider's got a lot to answer for with that. She was me fucking idol. I used to love sitting playing on Tomb Raider. I had all the cheats, man, all the cheats, every weapon gone. Where was I at there? So easy. I was at easy for, yeah. I ended up, you know, getting me tickets, getting me part two. My money went up eventually, absolutely buzzing. I think I got a lot more respect off people then as well. I think people started taking it seriously. Like those first couple of years, there was a hell of a lot of shit, like a lot of negativity towards us, a lot of like judgment, just people being like, you're a fucking joke. Do you know what I mean? Like, this isn't like what you're doing. This is daft. But then obviously I'll work with people and they'll be like, no, do you know what? You're actually like, you put top effort into everything. Like you're a good little grafter. And as soon as I got me tickets, I did earn me respect a bit then. And because the system scaffold was quite rare, like I was one of the only ones that really knew how to use it properly when all other people were coming in. So you get advanced scaffolders coming in just for like a week's work who've never used the system, and you know, they would put them with me just because I would show them the ropes with the system. But then eventually, you know, it gets to the point where you start thinking, right, what's next? What doors are going to open for us? And they asked us if I wanted to go in the office just to kind of fill in for for the admin lass while she was on maternity. And I just thought, well, it's a stepping stone, isn't it? It's getting us off the tools. Because to be fair, I did feel trapped there. I was like, look, I'm never going to be able to go and work with Tube and Fitting anywhere else. I'm just an Alia Star scarf. And I was petrified. So, I put up with a lot of shit there for that reason. And, you know, especially with the boss. But he left eventually and he actually started working for somewhere else for Interserve. And I think he was telling people at Interserve about me. And then he left there as well. But then after he left, somebody basically approached us on LinkedIn and was like, are you looking for work? Because we've got a trainee QS role coming up. So I'd been in the office for around 8 months or something, and that company was going under. So it was a hard time, man, because like all the lads were getting bumped all the time. They were going under. They didn't have the money to pay wages, man. And the lads, obviously, who I'd worked with for a long time were coming in, and I was the person they were seeing at the desk, and they were giving me the shit and that. So it wasn't very nice. I was dying to get away from there. Really uncomfortable environment. I hated it. So when this guy like offered us this, and he was like, oh, you know, it's the trainee role starts at 25 grand a year. I think at the time I must have only been making about 18 grand max. 25 grand a year in a company car. I was like, fucking hell, definitely. Do you know what I mean? Like, you'd be mad not to take that, wouldn't you? I didn't even know what a QS was, man. I didn't even know what it was, but I didn't care. I was just like, yeah, I'll take the car and the money. If you're going to train us up, I'll do out. So yeah, I did. I jumped ship, and luckily I did, because Easy went under, liquidated about 6 months after that. And I left that all behind. And this was me thinking I would never, you know, go back on the tools again. So I went up to Interserve. It was amazing the first few months. I was this woman called Dawn. Oh God, bless her heart. I love Dawn to bits, man. Miss her as well. She was she was from the Edinburgh branch, but she was coming down just to be my trainee, my trainer, my teacher, if you like. So she was showing me how to do it all the filing, and it was like all written as well as on the computer, and just doing the month end reports and stuff like that. And on every little job, it's hard to explain what that job role actually was, but it wasn't getting out on site and estimating and reviewing what had been put up and stuff like that. Like I thought it was going to be site based, but it wasn't. It was office based, and I didn't, after a while I was a bit bored. But the office was nice, and the people there were lovely, and I got on with everyone, and it felt like a really nice fresh start. And then there was a plot twist. We got taken over by the Preston branch, and the guys that ran it down there were just completely different. They were just cut from a different cloth. Like they come in suits straight away, and we were just like, what the fuck? I come in suited and booted, and they basically stopped Dawn from coming down and replaced with a guy called Anthony, who was lovely lad, but very highly qualified. Very, like, these people are out of fucking university, and they did not like me being in that role straight away. They were like, you shouldn't have got this role. You've not been to university. You're undereducated in it. We would never normally take a trainee on who wasn't qualified. And I'm like, fuck off. The whole point was I was getting trained up. But they didn't like us. And yeah, the job just got harder and harder, more demanding. Anthony left. They tried to get someone else in to replace him. I ended up training the person who replaced him, and then in the end they tried to get rid of the trainee role and just keep a QS on. And yeah, I left, and I got a start as a contracts manager. Again, jumped in head first. Should have really thought about it a bit more, but I was just desperate to get out of there. And yeah, my ex at the time, they were very close to this company. They had a good work relationship, and I didn't want to turn it down. Like, I just didn't want to seem disrespectful. So when I got offered the job, I took it, completely unaware of what I was going into, no management experience, and I just thought they were aware of this. I thought they know that I've got my experience, but yeah, I feel that I was very, very in at the deep end. I did have help of people. I'm never going to sit there and say I didn't have help, but the environment and the way that you had to ask for help was very confrontational, very passive aggressive, and I didn't like it. And I just, I'm not that person. I just wasn't that person. I was not cut out to be a contract manager. And I found that I didn't get the right support for someone who was completely fresh. Like, you can't just jump into a role like that when you've never done even supervisor. So I went down to supervisor for a bit. Didn't really like that neither. And then eventually went back on the tools because I was crumbling. I ended up literally nearly having a nervous breakdown. I think I kind of did. I did lose my mind for a little bit, in the best way, because the best things came from it. They really did. I was absolutely crippled with anxiety while I was working there. Just drinking over it and taking drugs over it. So yeah, eventually it's like a bomb went off inside. It was like I imploded. And yeah, I left my personal life and everything, started a new life, and asked to go back on the tools, which they let me. So I went to a new build site, and honestly, they put us with this guy, Davey. What an absolute diamond. Like, I owe him so much for helping us, because like I say, it was literally like being a trainee again. And yeah, bless him. Because was he on price? I'm sure he was on price as well. The direct, I did sort him out. I'm sure he would have sorted him out, like, knowing that he was sort of carrying me for a few weeks, for a few months even. Yeah, I was there for about 6 months, I think, and I loved it. We were just running rings in, table lifts, rings in, crash mats inside, and started to really get used to using the drill in that as well, because I'd never used a drill. And yeah, we had 21s there, but the 21s were thinner steel. So I think, did they come 4.2 and 3.2 mil or something? These must have been the 3.2 mil ones. They were definitely lighter than a thick 21, but I still found them super heavy. Like, it was, by the time I left that site, I could stand them up. I could stand them up without touching the floor. I mean, I could flip them. Scaffs know what I mean by flip them. I could, but not efficiently enough. Do you know what I mean? It was taking time. It was just like, okay, you're fucking quicker just footing it on summit. which was good. And obviously because we weren't doing anything higher than a house, there was no top outs with 20s. So yeah, I was all right on there. And then moved down to London. So I was seeing a scaffolder who was working offshore, and he was like, look, why don't we go to London? We can earn the same money. We can earn really good money and we can save up and stuff, buy a house or something. And we went down together and went on for an agency. And this is where I met and worked with Claudia. Sorry, I had met Claudia before. That is a lie. I had met her before. But it's the first time I've ever worked with another lass. And we were on the Crossrail job together. In Canary Wharf, they were doing the tube line, the Elizabeth line. So we ended up on there together. And yeah, we had, I think we only worked together about a week in total, do you know what I mean? But it was nice, it was different, and we were on the total same vibe. It was class. We didn't really have much on though, to be fair. We weren't exactly working hard together, but we did work together and we had a laugh. And yeah, I don't know if there's any other lasses out there that have worked with another lass. I'm intrigued to hear. I was down in London for a few months, and yeah, I think because I was working with my boyfriend and like living with him, we just weren't getting on in the end. So we had to come up with like a solution. And I was like, well, I've always fancied offshore. I always have liked the idea of just going to work, coming back, and like your life's your life. You can separate the two. Do you know what I mean? So I paid for my survival, and we both tried to get offshore, which we did. I got a start for Stork and he got a start for Billfinger. And then it was good because we had like 3 week trips in a row where we're like aligned perfectly, and that was good. But then he got paid off. That's right, he got paid off. And then he started going back down to London again, and I ended up splitting up with him in the end, but I stayed offshore. And honestly, it is the best thing I ever did. It really is. There's definitely, I feel like I've got to be careful what I say here. There's definitely downsides, like there is with every industry and every different type of site and stuff like that, or every type of job, you know what I mean? There's downsides to everything, but ultimately, for me, it's still the best thing I ever did. I've had an amazing, time traveling and being able to do things outside of it, running me holistic business as well, which I haven't really done anything with for a little while now, but it's still there. I can just run a retreat when I want to, if I had a set rotation. That's kind of the downside. You don't always have a set rotation, but it's just opened up a lot of doors for me, and it's kind of part of who I am now, in terms of like, I just like to separate work life from adventure. So when I got offshore, like, obviously the jobs are totally different. There's no 21s out here. So yeah, I should have mentioned, like, when I was down in London, there was a few jobs where we did have 20s on, but I was working with my partner at the time and he was just doing all the toppers. He was. So it's like, I've never really had the chance to really practice doing toppers with 20s. I've just never really been in a position where I've had to put one in, ever. And, that's in the fucking 17 years. Like I say, I did have those few years off. So that time that I was in the office from Easy and before I went back on the tools, that was roughly about 4.5 years, that. So, although I've been in the industry for 17 years, it's less time on the tools. It's probably like 12 years on the tools or something like that. And, 5 years system. So, yeah, I've avoided 21s. I've been lucky. But it just goes to show as well that there is industries out there that don't have them, and let's face it, 21s that is the big bad wolf. It really is. And probably the main reason why there isn't more women in scaffolding. And the main reason is, it is a hard physical job, isn't it? It's hard, and to the point where things are that much that it's probably dangerous for a woman to try and handle it. And this is what I really want to get across when I'm doing this podcast. I'm going to say things, right, that a lot of people they're not going to like, and it's just my opinion. You can't take anything that I say as complete fact, because I'm not very good at quoting where I've learned it. Do you know what I mean? You get these people who are like, they'll spit facts out and then they're like quoting the book and the author and things like that, or the scientist who discovered it and that. I ain't got that shit in my head. But I do have strong opinions, but I'm also very open-minded as well, and that's the whole point in this podcast for me, is to speak to other lasses and see if my mind's changed, can change in any way. But there might be things that I say that are classed as controversial, and I just like want to point out that to me, I see massive differences between men and women. I think there's biological and physiological differences between men and women, and I'll always argue that, I'm open to have my mind swayed at that, but I don't think I ever will. I think that's just a point blank fact, is that men and women are different that way, man. Do you know what I mean? Why are we living in a world where we're having to even argue that? But again, that's just my opinion, so shoot me for it if you want. I doubt anyone listening to this is going to disagree with that, but you never know. And I'm doing this podcast, I'm putting myself out there for all kinds, really. But I'm just, stating now, like, what I say, it's just what I think and what I feel, and that's what this is about. And it's hoping that when I meet the other lasses, they're going to say the same, they're going to feel comfortable enough to do the same. And what I'm really trying to achieve here is to see the common grounds between us, but also see the diverse differences between even just the women. Every single scaffolder is different, every single one. And some people are more like than others. It's just the way of the bloody world, isn't it? And I'm just wanting to find this common ground, because for me, like I say, that full time, it wasn't until what year was it when I found out about Claudia was the first time I found out there wasn't another lass. For a very long time I started to think I was the only one, because constantly getting told, like, you're the first lass I've ever seen scaffolding. I still get it now, because we're still so rare. Do you know what I mean? I think there's probably less than 100. When me and Claudia and Farron were in the paper years ago, I think there was less than 20. Quote me on that. This is the thing, you're gonna have to be careful. Things I say, you might want to research things that I say to get the truth and the facts. I've got such a bad memory. Yeah, it's definitely increased since then, but we are still such a minority. And like, what I'm really trying to achieve here is just awareness that there is women in the industry and that women are capable of doing it. And that awareness, I want to be more towards the other scaffolders. So like, my biggest challenges, I feel, over the years have been psychological more so than physical. There is so many ways to make scaffolding easier, and just even working as safe as possible makes it a hell of a lot easier. There's been such a shift in the culture of scaffolding, I feel, in all of that time. Like, I'm not saying that it's not a manly job, right? Or like, I don't want to demasculate men. And I feel like the problem is, when men think about working with a woman, they do feel demasculated, because there was a huge identity that, like a collective identity with scaffolders, that you were like the hardest of the trades. You work the hardest, you were the strongest of the trades. So to think that a woman can come in and do your job it's going to trigger somewhere in your subconscious, isn't it, that you're not as manly as you thought you were, or you're just going to doubt straight away that there's no way they can do this. And I just want to get to the bottom of it, because I've said there, I've not really been in a position to top out with 21s, right? Yeah, there's Georgia topping out with them, like, pretty much 5 foot hemps. She can do it, no bother. So lasses can. I'm hoping when I get to talk to Georgia, we can find out how she built up to that. Was it something she just done straight away? Did she have to practice over and over? I don't know. We'll find out. But ultimately, hemping out with the 21s and even 16s, even really, the heavier steel 16s, can be very, very dodgy as well. I'm just kind of wanting to lower fear amongst the men of women coming in. I know that I'm prejudged before I go anywhere. Now, I have got a better reputation now, but ultimately, like I say, there's just that doubt before anyone's even worked with you, and fear. Not just fear that you're not going to be capable, but also fear of what you're capable of, like, are you going to be offended? It's like they're scared to be themselves. They go to work, like they leave their home life and they separate the home life with work. And a lot of them have worked with just men for years, and it's just, that's their little manly place where they get to just be a man, So to think that like a woman's going to come in and they're going to have to mind what they say, you can imagine, feel the fear, like, I want to kind of say this to women as well. Like, imagine like yoga, right? Imagine yoga. I know yoga is for men and women, but if you think when yoga first became a thing, right, massive thing, it was mainly just lasses, wasn't it? And you just maybe get one man at a yoga session, like in every 10 that you do. Like imagine feeling like, well, you would know yourself when a lad comes in, like, and they're at the back of the room, you might feel a little bit uncomfortable, or like if two guys come in and started, it's meant to be a peaceful environment in that yoga studio, and then two people come in and they start talking and gobbing off and sparking a fag up at the back or something like that, it's kind of like, and then your piece is ruined. That's just a little example. Do you know what I mean? I can totally understand where the fear comes from. And I just kind of want to break that fear a little bit, make sure that women considering it understand that it's a certain type of energy. That's what I'm going to call it. It's just a type of energy. And like I say, I've always bonded with men. I've always got on with lads. My humour, like I love sexual humour. I love sexual innuendos. I think they're fucking hilarious. I swear, every other word is a swear word when I'm comfortable. And that's the top and bottom of it. And it's like, I want the lads to be comfortable, just as comfortable as I want to be comfortable. And that's how it works. So I just kind of want people to understand the industry that we're in. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't stop them being hard workers, doesn't stop them being good people just because they like a laugh and a joke and a little bit of sexual banter. It's not like, or things that are a little bit tongue in cheek. I think sometimes if you're easily offended and you've got thin skin, don't do it. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Because but then some people love that type of banter, then it's maybe for you. You wouldn't ask somebody who's afraid of scissors to go and cut in a hairdresser's, like to go and work in a hairdresser's, would you? Just that type of thing. A time in my life now where I'm kind of comfortable with who I am. I'm comfortable with who I am on the tools. I got me advanced back in 2020, mainly because the work offshore is advanced work. It's adaptive. It's not your straightforward towers and stuff is normal. And yeah, I knew that there wasn't any other female advanced, and I just seen it as a challenge. I thought, you know what? I wonder if I could do it then. I've been in it bloody long enough. Can I do it? I seen it as a challenge, so yeah, I went and done it. And yeah, I'm comfortable in my skin now at work, and I do enjoy my job. Yeah, people can throw up in the mouths at that all they want. I do enjoy it when I'm working with good people. And scaffolding's all about who you work with. At the end of the day, it really is. I would love to see a dynamic of women working together. It would be mental. I can't imagine it. You know what? I can't, because it's been so long not working with women. I can't imagine it. So I get why lads can't imagine what it's like to work with a lass. But, I'm going to say 99% of lads that I've worked with have said that they're pleasantly surprised, and it's been quite refreshing for them, and they've enjoyed it. They've enjoyed the banter. I've chose to do this now because I keep seeing more and more. I keep seeing more and more lasses on TikTok and things like that, and I've got this nurturing side of me where I'm like, I know there was times in my career where I felt really lonely and I felt like no one can ever understand us. No one can understand the challenges, the mental challenges. Like I was saying earlier, a lot of the challenges are more mental, and it's more a battle of your worth. You just want to prove your worth. You don't want to be pushed forward because you're a lass. You don't want resentment from lads thinking that you're getting special treatment. You just want to be accepted, and you just want to fit in, and I know what that feels like, and it can cause a lot of mental battles. And like I say, I've been through all the anxiety and work related anxiety, and I doubt myself a lot of the time, and I take things personally sometimes, and I'll not show it, but it'll come out in other ways, and I just kind of thought, I would like to be somebody to resonate with others, to say to them, listen, it's okay, you're understood, because sometimes that's all you need, isn't it? You just need to be understood. You just want to feel like, yeah, someone understands, and I might not have solutions or answers, but just knowing that someone else is in the same boat, it's massive. Like, it's healing. It really is. So yeah, I felt like I was the only one for such a long time, and I'm just so intrigued by these other women, and I've got a massive interest in psychology, in people's lives. I've done a lot of trauma awareness courses and things like that, and I understand a lot about conditioning and human conditioning and what makes you who you are. So I'm just so interested in getting to know these other lasses, to see if, like I say, if we've got similarities and stuff, or just what their drive is. Because it takes a hell of a lot of courage to do this job. It's to be the odd one out, to be the one that gets stared at when you walk on site, and it's we're doing it for a reason. And, mine is basically to provide for myself and feel like I'm doing something like that I can be proud of. Do you know what I mean? It kind of feels like, because everyone that I am meeting, I think I've probably got the longest experience. I've been in it for the longest, so it almost feels like it's a responsibility that lies on me to kind of help pave this path and, see if there is things, see if we've been neglected in some ways, and how it could have been easier for us and how it could have been easier for the people that we work with, and I just kind of feel like I'm at this point where I'm confident, I'm comfortable, and I've learned a lot. I'm still learning every day. Every day is a school day with scaffolding. I'm just kind of ready to take that role, if that makes sense. So that's why I'm going to do it now. It almost feels like a duty, and that sounds a bit sad, but it does. And obviously there's a bit of a paradox going on, because like I said, I want it to be normalized. I just want it to feel normal, for lads and lasses to be working together scaffolding. I just want it to be normalised and everyone to be comfortable and happy working together. Obviously, personalities clash no matter what gender. But it's like, in order to raise awareness, to get people to be more sort of equal, if that makes sense, I have to kind of highlight that it is rare. So although it's kind of, I'm going to say equality, right? But in equality, within that, what I mean by equality is like everyone treat the same, treat fairly, and you've got to cater for each different person, haven't you? And I think there is differences with men and women, and I think it's about time we started opening up that box and taking out all the grey areas that have been overlooked for years. The different manual handling, things like that. What differences is there? What are the pros of women being in the industry, and what are the cons? Like, what can we work on? And like I say, I haven't got answers. I don't really have answers. This is research. This whole thing's research. And it's down to like the industry leaders really to listen to these podcasts and see what they can come up with. We can come up with suggestions and solutions, but we can't really put anything in place, and it's only suggestions and it's just opinions. So, I'm not here to come up with hard answers, if you like. But, hopefully we can just raise some awareness. We can get everyone on this sort of equal playing ground. Also, just, it's about the women to feel a little bit like seen and heard as well. Because I know that, like, the whole time I've been on the tools, that is, no industry leaders ever come to me and asked me, are you struggling with anything? Is there anything that you can't do that the lads do? Is there anything you have to do different because, that's too hard? No one's ever asked that. So it's kind of like you are like a little bit of a mushroom sometimes, just trying to adapt and prove your worth. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, big speech over. So now I'm going to hit you up with the kind of nitty gritty, the things that I do struggle with, the things that I think are different to what a man does. So now I am going to be talking about things that are classes female traits and male traits. And this is, based off just basically everything that I've ever read and learned in life. And I'm very interested in the differences between men and women. There's a lot of physical differences. A lot more research has been done now. Scientific research can back up a lot of this. There's a woman called Stacy Simms who is like a sports scientist, and she researches women's bodies, to do with physical performance, which I think is definitely relative to scaffolding. And she talks about the way that women's bodies actually store energy different to men's. So they use you like basically need to eat more carbs than men or something like that. What I will do is when I research some things, I'll maybe put it in the comments, any research that I find is like solid that you can take as fact, and put it in the description. But she definitely did state that it was a podcast I watched. Actually, I've watched her on a few, and then I've got one of her books as well. And then there's other books to do with like psychological differences in the brain. There's a lot of evolutionary science, like evidence as well, to show how we've got this like primal instinct in us that is based around survival and reproduction, and it's very different in a man and a woman. So there's so many ways that we can kind of prove, the differences. And some things that I have noticed about myself. So this is the thing, I can't really speak for all the lasses, and I can't really say these are definitely feminine traits or female traits. These are just my traits. But these are things that I do notice. When it comes to speed, I'm definitely slower. I'm definitely slower at turning the spanner. I'm more so kind of getting it to a tightness. So, it's when you're wrapping off the fitting with a spanner, it will take me longer. I have to go over it and give it a couple of extra sort of half turns to get it tight enough. Do you know what I mean? Which takes more time, ultimately. Topping out, I do struggle to top out with 16s that are 4 foot or above. Now, this is only if I'm kind of... this is where it gets tricky, isn't it? Talking about, if I'm on a job where it's been impossible to put a safe zone in, or it's been impossible to work behind a handrail and stuff like that, or get a lift fully boarded, which sometimes does happen when there's loads of pipe work and stuff in the way. So if I'm just trying to like stand on like a ledger and a board because I couldn't get a board in, or trying to do something and then I'm trying to top out at a height, it can be a struggle. Now, one thing I'm going to say is I've never once dropped a tube. I've never dropped a tube. And, because I think I've thrown myself in the firing line by saying things like this, but what you've got to understand is how often we actually would top out like that is very fucking rare. Do you know what I mean? So, like, when it comes to doing it, I do think that there's a part of me that doesn't have that core strength, that like that natural core and back strength that a man has. Now, obviously, I do go to the gym and that, and I am strong. I am definitely strong, but I'm not hench. I'm not hench, and I'm not repetitively doing that every day. So it can be a struggle sometimes, to top out at a 4 foot hemp with a heavy 16. The lighter ones are a breeze, and again, it's all about positioning and stuff like that. So I definitely couldn't do it with 21s. However, I know there's other lasses there doing all of this. So what I want to say is, like, there is so many different areas in scaffold, isn't there? You've got like offshore style scaffolding, you've got your streetwork scaffolding, just, towers, independents, roof saddles on front 3-siders of a house, bungalows and stuff. And then you've got your industrial scaffolding where, you're all going to be doing big top outs all the time because you're going up, loads and loads of lifts. And then you've maybe got like your railway stuff, your bridges, your offshore, your underground, your crossrail stuff. A lot of that was just small towers. And then you've got your system scaffolding. So there's so many different industries. Your building sites. I think there's only a couple of them where it is actually probably going to be a struggle. And I just think in that dynamic, right? If I come to a scaffold and I'm on the job and I go to do it and I feel like I'm wobbling and it's getting to the point where actually I think I can't go anymore, I might drop it, right? I would either put something smaller in, right, just for now. I'd have to just fucking swallow my pride and put something smaller in, or swallow my pride and ask someone else to do it. Now, 9 out of 10 times, I'm telling you, the lad will see straight away that you've got a wobble on and he'll go, I'll get that, right? And then you'll say, right, well, that lad's carrying you. But I just want to put this in perspective. If that's only 3 fucking hemps on the job, is he carrying? Do you know what I mean? Is he carrying? And one thing that I've learned, right, is there's no 3 scaffs the same in a squad. What I could do as well in that instance is run a handrail in and stand on the handrail to get height. There's so many different ways to do it, but of course it just puts time on the job. So then it comes down to the question, well, is your teammate carrying you? Should he get paid more? On price work, yeah. You know what I mean? But then the thing is, there's not 2 scaffs the same. Like, how often do you get a scaff who is good at communicating, good and very, very fast? Do you know what I mean? Very fast, efficient, very smart, can work the job out dead quick, doesn't make any mistakes, and he's a good laugh. Everyone likes working with him. It's like there seems to be this full package scaffolder that is very rare, very, very rare out there. What tends to happen is that full package is split between a squad. So you might get, for example, I'm just going to use, and I used this with a colleague, and he says it really helped him get his head around it. So you might get Bob, right, who is a big guy, muscly guy, so strong, right? Just he likes throwing the ladder beams, the steel ladder beams about. He's so strong, and he likes to just work fast. He likes to just bang 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 in, right? And he likes working on these sort of bigger jobs where there's loads of hemps and stuff like that because he likes it. It makes him feel tough, right? So he likes doing that, but he hasn't got a clue when it's anything outside of a normal tower, right? He can't think, he can't adapt, he gets confused very easily, and he just shuts down. He doesn't really have an input when it comes to putting the job in. He just likes to do, right? Because he lacks a little bit on the technical skills side. And he's very quiet, he keeps himself to himself. He's the muscle of the job, right? And then you've got Joe. Joe is about 60, like literally going to retire soon. He's not got the strength anymore. He has back in the day, but he's probably got a knee replacement, a hip replacement, and he doesn't do as much on the tools anymore, but he's the brains of the squad. And he's been, doing that job for years, and you hit a problem and he has an answer within 10 seconds. He's like the granda or the dad of the squad, and he's a good laugh as well. Keeps up the morale, just comes out with loads of one-liner belters, and you just feel supported with him. You like to have him there because he just labours most of the time, doesn't really jump up much unless it's just a one lift. I might get up and put a bit of handrail in, but out like that. But you don't mind because he's so fucking good to have. He's so good to have on the job. Do you know what I mean? And then you'll have me. You'll have a lass who I'm dead quick. I'm there with the gear. I've got the gear planned out. I'm helping mucking with the jobs. I'm coming up with ideas. I'm a good laugh and I'm keen. And on those days, and I'm up and I take my turn, and there's not really anything wrong. It's just every now and then, Bob comes behind us and gets the toppers. And when he sees there's going to be toppers, he goes, "I'll jump up first and I'll get them." I'm going to be totally honest with you. This is very fucking rare. I'm making it sound like it happens a lot, but it doesn't. I'm just creating a scenario there. But ultimately, what I've been told is people like having us as part of a squad. Sometimes, don't get us wrong, I confuse things to fuck. And I don't think we're being a woman. I think it's more the way that my brain works. If I come up with an idea and then someone else says something, sometimes it takes me a while to get in my head what they're thinking, and I'm in the zone where I'm trying to justify if theirs is quicker and safer and better than my way. Do you know what I mean? Rather than just taking their word for it. So I'm like, I get in this little confused state for a little bit, but then I'm sound. And ultimately, I can't really think of any other way that I would hinder the job. Do you know what I mean? Apart from if you were on price work and you wanted to get the job done, like say it was a job in knock and it was just something, I would just say, right, if you want it done quickest, whoever's fastest on the tools gets it done. If I'm the fastest that day, then fair dues. Sometimes I am. I don't want to make me sell out to be a nightmare because I'm not. There's times I've been a nightmare when I've been riddled with anxiety, and it's usually when I'm feeling like people don't want us in the squad. I might just have a run in with one person, and then it can be like a little bit of piss take about being slow or something like that, and then it will start to get to us a little bit. But what I have started doing is speaking up as soon as it happens. I just say, "Look, are you sure? Like, are you bantering?" Do you know what I mean? I have to start asking people, like, is this banter or is it serious? Because I start getting a little bit anxious if it's not. And then, I'll maybe start slowing down a bit then. But ultimately, I'm not that much slower. I'm saying I'm slower, but I'm not that much slower. It's never once if we had to fucking work or not finished when we've said we were going to finish a job just because I'm on it. Because I'd just like to work at my pace because that's my safe pace. Do you know what I mean? And I'm happy at this pace. As soon as I start trying to speed up to get the job fucking finished and get in, or like a quick job and knock, I don't like it. I get stressed, and then you might end up making daft little mistakes, if you're putting something up. So I'll just say to someone, look, if you want it done fucking quick, do it yourself. But that's what I like about offshore. It's your priorities, just get the job done safe. Just make sure it's safe. Do you know what I mean? There's no rush. And that's why I kind of fit in with the offshore culture, really. I know there's a lot of street work where it's all about productivity and price work and stuff like that. And I wouldn't fit in an environment like that. So I just think that there's all these different types of industries need to consider these things. And again, that's just me. I know people, they use impact wrenches, and that takes out the spanner element. Do you know what I mean? So you're not going to be slower on that. There's so many different ways. And also now, those thinner gauge tubes are an absolute dream. you pick one of them up, and you know, I've not had a blind bit of bother with any of those tubes. You know, the ultimate solution is to just ensure that the standard tube would be the thinner tube. And you know, you don't have to get rid of 21s because they work out perfect for houses and stuff like that, but just only use them in certain industries, and just make sure that like the lasses are aware of what industry they're going into, what it entails. And then of course the employers, when they are taking on these lasses, is it a sacrifice they want to make? Is it going to be like a big commercial job in the middle of the town centre where they're going to have to top out with 21s? Are you really going to, you know, risk putting a woman on that? And look, I'm talking like I'm picking up scenarios here. We don't even know if any of this happens, but I'm just trying to think of like future scenarios and what could happen. But you know, ultimately, like I say, what I've struggled with is physically, it's just keeping up. It's just trying to keep up sometimes. In terms of speed with the spanner, higher top outs with 16s or above. I'm fine with 13s. You know, I think that goes without saying that the 13s are all right. I mean, to be honest, there's been a couple of times when it's been like round the back of a pipe and I've had to try and like balance round and lift it with a 13, and I've struggled with that. But again, it's like I say, struggled. There's always ways. There's always ways to fix it. There's always ways to make it easier, and it doesn't really slow down that much. So I can't really see how much more I would fault it, because at the end of the day, your dynamic and your social dynamic of it and getting on with people and stuff, you get this in every industry. You really do. And you get it amongst the guys. A major thing that I really want to get across on this podcast as well is how amazing and how much credit I owe to a lot of the men that I've worked with over the years. And it's not necessarily that everyone has helped me, but it's just the acceptedness, and when you're offshore. What I've loved about offshore is you work with the same squad usually for like 2 weeks, and you really get to know people. Now, I'm a people person. I don't know if that's like a woman thing, but I just love to sit and get to know people and to get to know the depth and the lives and stuff like that. Now, a lot of the time, scaffs just whinge, moan, you know, talk about the same things. But every now and then I get to have deep conversations with people, and honestly, man, like I love men like so much. Not in a fucking seedy way, by the way. Well, probably that now, but I do love just the complexity of men, and I just think this stereotype of what a scaffolder is far fucking from what they are. Like, scaffs, they've got such big hearts, they really, really have, and I think sometimes the hearts are a little too big, that they just get a little bit hyperactive. Do you know what I mean? And they're so fucking funny. Like, and I'm probably biased because, like I say, I just fit in with the scarves, like my humour and everything. But just, I've had an absolute blast in my career. I've had the few odd incidents where I have felt like people have been malicious, do you know what I mean? Maliciously nasty towards us, but it's not even enough for us to sit here and go into. It's, the guys are so fucking helpful and so nurturing. So like, nurturing's meant to be a female trait, but it's the only word I can think of. They've really, really helped, and they've got this weird way of like, they just don't go into too much shit. They don't like it. It is what it is, and like, there's no you're never having to sit and kind of figure out what it is they're trying to like teach you. They're just pretty straightforward. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it. I thought I'd be a bit better when it come to it. But now that I'm on the spot, I'm a bit like, I've had so many deep thoughts about this, and I really should have wrote notes, but I didn't. But yeah, just big up all the men that I've worked with, and a huge fucking thank you, you know, like, to anyone who I've worked with. They're so patient. You know, for men meant to be these, especially scaffs, meant to be these big, aggressive, you know, mindless men who only think about sex. Like, the complete opposite. Honestly, complete opposite. Don't get us wrong, they do think about sex a lot, and the humour's very sexual, but it's not the priority. All of the men I've worked with, they're out there working for their families, and they're sacrificing time for their families. They're just absolute diamonds, and I've worked with so many over the years that it really, it just warms my heart. And you know, like, I didn't grow up with a dad or a father figure, and there's some men that I've worked with out there that have felt more like my dad. Genuinely, like, my heart has been healed when it comes to like masculine wounding through these men. They're so soulful, and they're so deep. It's just mad. Like, it's the emotional depth of a lot of men. It is amazing. That just don't spiral off. With emotions, it doesn't seem to grow and grow when you sit and talk about something emotional with them. But they can talk about emotions, and just in a very direct way. And I don't know if that's something I bring out in them. I have had that be said a few times, like when people start rambling on and going like, fucking hell, I never normally tell anyone this, so it must be because you're a lass. And I think that really helps them as well. And I would be so honoured if I felt like I had helped someone mentally in a trip just by talking to them. Do you know what I mean? And I think obviously in the world that we're living now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm very passionate about mental health, and we have a mental health pandemic amongst men. The suicide rates are fucking disgusting. And if bringing more women into the workplace is going to help men in that sense, then surely that's a win. Do you know what I mean? If they're going to feel like they've got more people to talk to, then it's a win. I'm going to kind of hit it from that angle as well. I just feel like they can be themselves a lot more. A lot of them have a guard up with each other, and it's a very primal thing. It's a very territorial thing, but that guard comes down a lot. I find anyway with me, they have a different type of guard up with me when they come in. It's more of a, like I say, like a threatening the masculinity type of thing, and like they're scared that I'm gonna take something offensively and I'm gonna get them sacked. I think that's the number one sort of issue, and I just I want to kind of get that fear removed, and also just give credit to how great men are, how patient they are, how good they are at teaching and explaining things. And yeah, I've felt at home with a lot of the men in my squads, and I've made a hell of a lot of good friends over the years. And yeah, thank you, because they'll know who they are if they're listening. Let us think of a few. I am going to shout out a few. Mark Brady's the first one I think of. Mark, I've already said that, I wish you were me dad. I wish you were me dad. What a guy, man. And then other people that I've put up with us. Stevie Mark. I told Steve I was shouting out to him. Worked with him for a long time. Peter Hogg, worked with you for a year. Just like, these are like brothers to us. Do you know what I mean? Scotty Nolan. Oh, that trip we had on the Cygnus, Scotty J. Butler, Andy Adams. Do you know if you can go to work? Like, oh, this is going into a proper speech, isn't it? I feel like I'm fucking thinking an award here. But when you go into work and you literally look forward to your shift, like you're with the right squad then. What a fucking laugh we had. Alan Carr, man, what a little diamond. Alan Carr passed away, unfortunately. There was an incident on a platform with him and he died, and what a guy. And I'll start crying if I talk about him too much. But he really touched my soul, just with how kind he was. And he really wanted me to do stuff like this, and he was like, you need to write a book, I can't wait to read it, and just bigging us up. But people, they're so kind. All these men are so kind as well. They'll help you out with anything. They'll give you things. Do you know what I mean? They're so generous as well. And I just kind of want to break that stigma that scaffs are just fucking mindless, aggressive people, because they're not. And most men that I've come across in all of these years that I've been scaffolding are lovely. And I'm pretty sure, don't get me wrong, they've got the fucking downside, and I'm going to be ranting like fuck with all the other lasses. We are going to have our rants. We really are. We're just scaffs, and we're just super, if anything, like a little bit more emotional, so I expect it to be even more. There's definitely negativity, and there's definitely things in there, but I want to kind of save all of that for when I'm sat with the lasses. Because yeah, apart from that, I've enjoyed working with men, and yeah, it's going to be interesting, to see what it's like to work with other women, and I hope I do. I hope it's coming soon. I've got a feeling it's coming soon. I can't wait. I can't wait to go and meet these other lasses. Actually, I do want to expand on what I was saying about the squad dynamic. So yeah, and the equal pay sort of thing. So yeah, what I was getting at was, when I was explaining those 3 people in the squad, like, yeah, they would be on equal pay. And the problem is with saying that you need to pay someone different based on their speed or expertise. every single scaffolder would be on a different wage, because there's not two the same. Like I say, I don't know many the full package, like I really don't. And that's, you know, that's where a lot of my confidence has come from now, to be fair, because I'm like, well, who am I comparing myself to? You know, because a lot of them really think that they're better than they are. But yeah, like I say, I'll delve into that with the other lasses. And this is officially the end of my episode. Of course, anyone feel free to drop questions, comments. Go easy on the trolling, please. You know, like I say, I have suffered anxiety in the past. I do feel like I'm a lot better now, and a lot more kind of don't give a shit, because I've had far too much good feedback from people that I work with. I've had far too much praise. I've had far too many good experiences in my career for me to hold on to, you know, what some fucking keyboard warrior has to say. So yeah, thank you so much for listening if you made it through the full thing. Hopefully you did. The other ones will probably be a little bit longer. Also, I am a member of WISA, which is the Women in Scaffolding Association, as a mentor. So if there is any females out there that are looking to get into the industry, really thinking about it, you can drop me an email, or if there's any already in there that just kind of want someone to talk to, any advice, just want to kind of connect, then drop us an email as well on there. So yes, thank you so much for listening. I hope I got everything in a nutshell there. Like I say, I'm going to be talking on all of these other podcasts. I didn't want to go into too much with mine. I kind of want them to flow and gel with each other with all of the other lasses. So you might feel like I missed a shitload out. You might think, do you know what? I don't really get much from that. But you're going to be getting it through all of the other episodes. This was just an introduction to me, to who I am, and why I'm doing this is a main starting point. So yeah, thank you for the 100th time. I will see you in the next episode. Coming up on the next episode. What do you think you would have been doing by now if you weren't doing scaffolding?
Well, I did beauty, so that's like massaging, nails, like it's a bit of everything, so you learn. But I just wasn't liking it. I thought that was what I wanted to do, but it just wasn't for me when I went to college. And I didn't think scaffolding would be for me, but I liked it, so been stuck with it.
So I just think there's too much pressure too young, and I think it's never too late to start scaffolding. You know,
They also don't give that as an option in school. Like, I didn't know what scaffolding was. I get so many people being like, oh my God, you're a girl. Like, it's lovely to see. And I love that, like, especially from like older women saying it, because obviously in their time,
it wouldn't have been an option.
Exactly. So it's really nice to hear when they're like, it's incredible.
Nice, So I definitely think like there's so much available in the industry of scaffolding for women. Like, if we can avoid the 21s, then fair dues. I think a lot more employers who are wanting to take on women really need to consider that.
Yeah, well, even like everything else, like that is the one issue I've got is 21s, but everyone knows like I am pretty much good at everything else. Don't get me wrong, I am a bit scared of heights, but I'll still give it my all, even if my legs are shaking.
There's been times when it's the first time doing something, for example, first time going down the dropper, I remember proper hyping it up in my head. I just couldn't get my head around it. I was like, I need to go and practice I need to go to a pole dancing studio and practice. Honestly, I was just like, I can't just go and do that, because the lads made it sound so scary.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, not many lads will get on a dropper. I've seen people like freak out and freeze on a dropper. And
many different types of jobs. You can judge any job. You could look, bin men have to pick up bins. Like everyone's got to do a job, otherwise these jobs wouldn't be done. So why are you judging? Like, everyone's got to do their part. It don't matter what you do, as long as you're earning, you're happy with what you're doing, that's all that matters.
And do you know what, there's also the benefits of like the physical fitness side of it as well. Do you know, it's good for your body.